ibiyobyabwenge birica kandi birangiza. Rinda ubuzima bwawe n'ubwa mugenzi wawe, tugira igihugu kizira ibiyobyabwenge. Rubyiruko, nimwe musingi ukomeye w'igihugu. Radio Imanzi, 105.1 FM. Buri wese abigize ibye, twatsinda burundu akarengane na ruswa. U Rwanda ruzira ruswa n'akarengane mu cyerekezo 2050. Radio Imanzi, 105.1 FM.
We got you updated. This is Radio Imanzi, news in English.
Thank you for tuning in. This is Radio Imanzi, 105.1 FM, broadcasting from Kigali. Here are the news in English, brought to you by Alvin Ungari. The headlines. President Paul Kagame has today joined other leaders in Geneva, Switzerland, to attend the 2022 Effective Development Cooperation Summit. The African Centers for Disease Control has announced today the second annual International Conference on Public Health in Africa, themed Preparedness for Future Pandemic and Post-Pandemic Recovery, Africa at a Crossroad. The United Kingdom has imposed sanctions on the former Ugandan police chief, Edouard Kale Kayihura, for his alleged role in gross human rights violations. We'll be back with news in detail. Welcome back. President Paul Kagame has today joined other leaders in Geneva, Switzerland, to attend the 2022 Effective Development Cooperation Summit. The summit is a hybrid event from 12th to 14th December 2022. According to organizers, this summit seeks to put a spotlight on how better cooperation strengthens trust and transformation, the way we work together. The summit has brought together key global decision makers, including governments, CSOs, philanthropists and businesses for exactly these purposes. During President Paul Kagame's remarks, he called for new ways of doing things, especially in mobilizing resources and partnerships, because the cost of meeting the SDGs target has increased by up to 25%. The head of state insisted countries should be learning lessons from what works and what doesn't work, and why. We just can't be repeating ourselves over and over, stressing very important points and yet not moving forward on them. President Kagame also said development effectiveness is also about keeping track of progress, identifying gaps and making adjustments where needed.
Excellency, President Cassis, the Swiss Federation, Excellency Maya Sandu, President of the Republic of Moldova, Excellency Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, co-chairs of Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be joining you for the opening of the 2022 Effective Development Cooperation Summit. 7 years ago, the world put its differences aside and united over a set of 17 Sustainable Development Goals for building more prosperous and peaceful societies for all. The Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation brought us even closer together in our quest for better outcomes. I wish to commend you for keeping the flame of effective development cooperation principles alive. This is no small feat when the landscape of development cooperation is under unprecedented strain with the COVID-19 pandemic, geopolitical tensions, and a global downturn. But we have to maintain the urgency to get back on track for the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals agenda. Progress remains slow, and in some cases, it is reversing. The guiding principles of putting country ownership first, focusing on results and mutual accountability are more relevant than ever. And this is really because we should be learning lessons from what works, what doesn't work, and why. We just can't be repeating ourselves over and over, stressing very important points and yet not moving forward on them. But with some reports indicating that the cost of meeting the SDGs targets has increased by up to 25%, new ways of doing things, especially in mobilizing resources and partnerships, are needed. One area that requires special effort is better resource mobilization among recipients. For example, following a similar emphasis on agriculture, the African Union has made increased domestic financing for national health systems a priority and is tracking this on an annual basis. I'm pleased to note the participation of Nados Bekele, our Chief Executive Director of AUDA NEPAT, on the Extended Steering Committee of the Global Partnership. Development effectiveness is also about keeping track of progress, identifying gaps, and making adjustments where needed. In line with this, I welcome the new monitoring framework, which will include as an assessment of the private sector's engagement as a key player in the development cooperation. Finally, the lessons of the pandemic and current global uncertainties are teaching us that everyone, rich and poor, is affected when there is a breakdown in trust. That includes trust between development partners and recipients. Building a robust framework for trust has been the goal of the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation since its establishment more than a decade ago. Development cooperation that is more inclusive and open to innovative partnerships and that delivers for the people who need it most is one way to build resilient systems nationally, regionally, and globally. Now, more than ever, we need to be focused and remain committed to our promises of delivering the sustainable development goals. We look forward to continue working together and staying the course. I thank you.
The Africa Centers for Disease Control has announced today the second annual International Conference on Public Health in Africa, themed Preparedness for Future Pandemic and Post-Pandemic Recovery, Africa at a Crossroad. CPHIA 2022, the event will take place at the Kigali Convention Center from the 13th to the 15th December in Rwanda. Dr. Yvon Butera, Rwanda's Minister of State in the Ministry of Health, say the conference will be an opportunity to discuss what Africa has achieved, but more importantly, charter the course on what will be achieved next.
Welcome to everyone. I'd like to start by welcoming you to Rwanda. It's a pleasure hosting you to our beautiful country. And Rwanda is delighted to really hold this first ever in presence Continental Public Health in Africa conference. And I think it's going to be, as my predecessors have talked about, a unique platform really to share what we've been doing in the last couple of years. There's a lot that Africa has to share with the world. And it's going to be a unique platform where you have a variety of researchers, policymakers, scientists, you name it. So I think we're going to take opportunity of this conference to discuss what we have achieved, but more importantly, charter the course of what we're going to achieve next. There's going to be a lot of discussions and way forward to build more resilient health systems in Africa. We've seen what we can do, we've seen areas where we can improve, and we're going to share a lot of knowledge, expertise, experience to better our continent's public health scene. So mine is just to welcome you and to tell you that we are really excited to have you, and that along the 9 tracks of the conference, there are many, many interesting discussion presentations that are going to happen, and we welcome you to share what we'll be discussing here, because there's going to be a lot of important things that will come out of this. And we wish you a pleasant stay here, and all of you have a wonderful conference, and we are all here whenever you need us. Thank you.
In a pre-conference briefing on Monday, Dr. Ahmed Ogwel Uma, the acting director for Africa CDC, said a total of 4,200 delegates have registered for the conference attendance. Dr. Uma said during the whole conference, a lot of knowledge is expected to be shared, especially in the field of public health, and it will be an event of action because there has been a lot of taking, so all recommendations will be put forward, shall be addressed.
Professor Benagwaho, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever we are joining from. 3 pieces of information I would like to share. One is riding on what Ernest already said. We have so far about 4,200 delegates registered fully. Others are still registered. So this is the first in-person edition of the Conference for Public Health in Africa, and we are really pleased with the turnout so far. The main conference begins tomorrow. Today we have 3 meetings, side events, and they are all flowing extremely well. And we are also looking forward to the side events to continue during the whole week of this meeting. So the conference main starts tomorrow, but the side events have started today and started very, very well. The second thing that I would like to say is we are looking forward to the official opening tomorrow, and the Honorable Minister will speak about that. But as we officially open it, we also need to officially appreciate the weight that Africa has decided to carry. It is the weight of knowledge. And the amount of knowledge that is being shared today, tomorrow, until the end of the conference is enormous. And as Africa CDC, we have committed that the recommendations that will come out of this conference are going to see a path into policy, are going to see a path into implementation at country level. Because we've talked enough, it is time for action. So this is a conference of action, and we are looking forward to those recommendations. Finally is the sheer support that we have seen from all our governments across the continent. All the 55 countries are actually represented here in this conference today. All 55 member states of the Africa Union. And we are very proud and we are grateful for the leadership that our governments, our heads of states, our ministers have shown during the time of arranging for this conference. And we are really committing that we are going to take whatever it is that we've discussed to them so they can be able to see that the idea that they had, the child that they delivered for us is growing and growing very well in the shape of Africa CDC, in the shape of this conference, in the shape of public health discussions here on the continent. So we are looking forward to a very, very robust and a productive conference that is going to be the beginning of even better conferences that are going to come after this. Thank you.
The conference is also expected to offer a unique platform for African leaders, researchers, policymakers and stakeholders to share scientific findings and public health perspectives and collaborate on research, innovation and public health across the continent.
Thank you very much. My name is Alvina Mngadi. I work for Radio Imanzi, and my question goes to Ahmed. We've seen what COVID-19 has done to us, and quite honestly, we managed to defeat it. But recently, there's been a lot of diseases like Ebola and monkeypox. So my question is, what is African CDC prepared to do to make sure that it doesn't become another pandemic, especially now that many African countries don't have enough funds? Thank you.
Thank you. Let me step back and scare you a bit. Today, there are 109 different public health events on the continent. Today, 109. The vast majority don't make it to the news. And when we say public health events, it means a disease entity has been identified within the community that has the potential to spread. Most of them are arrested because of the good work that our countries are doing, and therefore they don't become big. The public health events of concern on the continent today are about 21. Out of the 109, 21 are public health events of concern across the continent. Out of those, 6 we are actively engaged in. So you see the cascading of numbers. The problem is not the circulation of the virus or the parasite or the bacteria. The problem is what we do ourselves in response to that particular outbreak. And this is where I fully agree with the Minister that when you strengthen the health system, then it can be able to respond to whatever comes. But as Africa CDC, 2 things that are very key in our preparation. One is building our capacity to respond within the first 48 hours. Not just having professionals. Because today, when there is an outbreak, the same health worker who is doing routine work is the one who is repurposed to start doing emergency work. it means that the routine work then suffers if you move that particular health worker to do emergency work. So for us, that's where we start. That and right now we are training a volunteer health corps, a standby force, if you want, of health workers who we can remove from health service without affecting the routine health services. Meaning that if an outbreak occurs in country X, instead of country X pulling out all their health workers doing routine work, we go to country Y and Z and pick a few of those that we've trained, we bring them to country X to make sure that routine health work is continuing while we are responding to the emergency.
Rwanda and Nepal are expected to sign an air service agreement to operate flights connecting both countries, according to media reports. The agreement will be under the Liberal Skies policy which Nepal has adopted, according to officials. It includes a provision for code sharing, such as third country code share, where airlines of both countries can partner with other airlines to facilitate service to each other's markets. Mukesh Dangol, an official at the Tourism Ministry of Nepal, told the Kathmandu Post that this follows a proposal from Rwanda's civil aviation industry to establish air links between two countries to strengthen tourism and trade. Rwanda will be the second African country after Egypt to sign an air service agreement with Nepal. As of April this year, Rwanda has signed a bilateral air service agreement with 107 countries, 49 in Africa, 24 in Europe, 19 in the Middle East and Asia, and 15 in the Americas. Both developing countries have established a diplomatic foundation with the appointment of Jacqueline Mukandira, Rwanda's first ambassador to Nepal in 2021. We'll be back with economic news.
Economic news is a regular feature on Radio Imanzi. Economic news is a regular feature on Radio Imanzi.
The trading session recorded a total turnover of 714,928,248 Rwandan francs worth of bonds traded in 2 deals on the fixed income market and 365,100 Rwandan francs from 2,000 shares traded in 4 deals on the equities market. Equities counters closed as follows: Bank of Kigali at 271 Rwandan francs, I&M Rwanda at 43 Rwandan francs, Bralirwa at 170 Rwandan francs, Simirwa at 120 Rwandan francs, MTN Rwanda at 175 Rwandan francs, Equity at 440 Rwandan francs, Kenya Commercial Bank at 370 Rwandan francs, National Media Group at 1,200 Rwandan francs, Uchumi Supermarket Limited at 104 Rwandan francs, and Dutch Buffalo at 526 Rwandan francs. We'll be back shortly with international news.
Some items of international news on Radio Imanzi.
The United Kingdom has imposed sanctions on the former Ugandan police chief Edward Kale Kayihura for his alleged role in gross human rights violations when he was at the helm of the Ugandan police force. General Kayihura was the Inspector General of Police in Uganda from 2005 to 2018. A statement dated December 9th, 2022 by the UK's Foreign Secretary James Cleverly said while Kayihura was in charge, he oversaw multiple units responsible for human rights violations, including torture and other cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment and punishment. Mr. Cleverly said it is our duty to promote free and open societies around the world. Today, our sanctions go further to expose those behind the heinous violations of our most fundamental rights. Since gaining new powers following our exit from the European Union, the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office has used targeted sanctions across multiple regimes to hold those committing these egregious acts, whether in Russia, Iran, Myanmar, or elsewhere, to account. General Kayihura is among 8 individuals under the UK sanctions accused of human rights abuse and corruption. Ian Abdul Haq, a Pakistan Muslim cleric, was sanctioned over alleged forced conversions and marriages of girls and women from religious minorities, whilst Shadrach Zelodon Rocha and Yoahidi Hernandez Chirino, the mayor and deputy mayor of Matagalpa in Nicaragua, are accused of involvement in promoting and supporting grievous violations of human rights. A sitting of both chambers of parliament has elected new members who will represent Rwanda in the 5th East African Legislative Assembly named EYALA. The voting of 9 representatives out of 77 contestants who vied for EYALA was conducted this December 12, 2022 at the Parliamentary Building in Kigali with 97 voters. 6 political party representatives elected include Fatuma Ndangiza, 94 votes, Kayonga Caroline Givanga with 94 votes, Matthias Harebamungu with 93 votes, Francine Rutazana with 93 votes, Aisha Nyiramana at 92 votes, and Clement Musengabatware at 90 votes. For women representatives, Françoise Umukiza was elected 83 votes, beating Helen Katusime and Gates Mushimiimana. Youth representative is Aludi Iradukunda, formerly a business analyst at Beka Tech House and currently secretary at Rwanda National Youth Council with 80 votes. Iradukunda said that her focus will be on enabling youth to find solutions to problems affecting the community, ease access to information to youth, and use the available opportunities such as the African Free Continental Trade Area to get youth to contribute to attaining African unity. Among representatives of persons with disabilities, Alex Bahati was re-elected to serve a second term because he has been serving since December 2017. He promised to reform EYALA disability policy to have more representatives in his category, but also put in place an East African Community Disability Council. The new members representing political parties, women, youth, and persons with disabilities will replace the 4th Assembly, which closes December 18th, 2022, and join the 5th EYALA Assembly, which starts its official work next year. Burundi's immigration policies for other Africans have improved significantly, with the country's visa openness ranking rising by 32 places in the year and becoming the second most open country in the East African Community bloc. According to a new report by the African Development Bank, Burundi's rise, mostly since 2021, is a result of Bujumbura accepting all travelers from Africa into the country, either on visa-free travel, all East Africans, or visas on arrival, all other Africans. Burundi does not have electronic visas yet, but it does not require Africans to apply for entry permits before traveling to its territory. Burundi's decision to allow all Africans to travel without visa applications helped it rise from 44th position to the 12th, making it one of the most improved countries on the continent's visa openness, ranking alongside Benin, Nigeria, and Ethiopia. This may give President Evariste Ndayishimiye credit for reforming his country's immigration and foreign policies since coming to power at the height of COVID-19. He is the current chair of the East African Community. In the bloc, the African Visa Openness Report 2022 shows that Rwanda is still the highest ranked country on visa openness, allowing visitors from 18 African countries without visas, while granting visas to all other Africans on arrival. It was ranked 5th in the Africa, behind Benin, Seychelles, the Gambia, and Ghana. The Tanzanian government has insisted that its current date service is no cause for concern. This may appear contrary to the latest data from the Bank of Tanzania, which shows that the country's date service is on an upward trend. The permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance and Planning, Emmanuel Tutuba, stated, "There is no reason to worry. The date remains very sustainable on the short, medium, and long-term basis." Extracts from the Bank of Tanzania's monthly economic report reveals that Tanzania's private and public stock are at $27,482, which is about 63.2 2 trillion shillings as of the end of October 2022. This report shows that there has been $140.4 million increase compared to what it was at the end of September 2022, even though the Bank of Tanzania says the increase was mostly on account of the depreciation of the United States dollar against other major currencies in which the debt is denominated. On the local side, domestic debt rose by 1.057 trillion shillings in October alone to bring the stock to 26.6 trillion shillings, and this was an increase of about 7.37 trillion shillings compared to a debt stock of 82.98 trillion shillings that was registered at the end of October 2021. Tutuba noted that most of the funds acquired from foreign lenders were being poured into the country's development, and as such is creating an avenue through which money can be generated to repay its debts. And that brings us to the end of today's program. Let us look at the headlines once more. President Paul Kagame has today joined other leaders in Geneva, Switzerland, to attend the 2022 Effective Development Cooperation Summit. The Africa Center of Disease Control has announced today the second annual International Conference on Public Health in Africa, themed Preparedness for Future Pandemic and Post-Pandemic Recovery, Africa at a Crossroad. The United Kingdom has imposed sanctions on the former Ugandan police chief, Edward Kale Kayihura, for his alleged role in gross human rights violations. Thank you for staying with me. This was Alvin Umngari on Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM. Stay tuned, stay safe, and have a wonderful night.